Alright, so welcome class.
Thank
you. Okay, so today we have something planned for you all, and hopefully it'll help you as future teachers. And to start off with this, what we're going to do is we're going to hand out this assignment. For time's sake, what we originally had you do was want you to actually complete the assignment. Okay, but for now, just want you to briefly look over it, read the article, and look at the questions. And then, think to yourself, is this an assignment that you feel is effective? Is this an assignment that you feel like you can do confidently? Do you understand it? So just take a few minutes, read over the article, even try to answer the problems if you feel like you want to. So we'll give you a minute or two just to look over that. Do we have enough copies? No. Okay, whether if you finish reading the article or not, if you've taken a moment to look at the questions, we really want to focus on that part, but the questions, they might make sense, they might not make sense, but do you feel that you can do this assignment confidently? Do the questions make sense? Do you know what you're supposed to do? Kind of, sort of, some, okay. Well, the example of that assignment, that was supposed to be an example of a bad assignment. If you understood it, good. Maybe it's because you did enough bad assignments in the past and you're used to it. But that was supposed to be an example of what not to do. That was supposed to be an ineffective assignment. And so, Today, we'll be talking about how to make an effective assignment. Our outcomes are that, or the objective of today's lesson is that you'll be able to understand the steps to make an effective assignment. Not only that, but you'll be able to implement the steps of making an assignment in your own future teaching. And so, yeah.
Okay, if you look around you, there's section 1, section 2, section 3, section 4. Once I count you off to 4, then move to each section, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, Melon, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Okay.
2,
Okay, so Seth's giving you guys a paper, that's for you to take notes. And so basically the section you guys are in, section 1, think of it as being step 1. And section 2, you guys are step 2. Section 3, step 3, and step 4. And so as we go through these steps, so for example, step 1, take note of what your step is, like how to do step 1. because later on, after we explain the steps, we're going to break into it. But we'll get to that later. So for now, alright, so step 1. So the first step in making an effective assignment is that you want to determine what you want. You determine what you want the students to accomplish. So this is done by identifying, well, before I get into that. So, like, as a teacher, you want to think of the questions as not so much of what should I cover, but what I want my students to learn. Because I feel when you think of like, oh, what should I cover? You're thinking more of like, oh, what would be good to not necessarily kill time, but it's like it's just going through a subject, and whether they learn it or not, you're just going to go over it. Versus what you feel like they should learn, that's something you want to ask yourself. And so to do that, you identify what is essential for students to master. Follow state standards. And standards help identify what is essential for students to master. Standards are the backbone of the curriculum. And also, the greater the structure of a lesson and the more precise the directions on what is to be accomplished, the higher the achievement. So when it says like the more precise the directions, it's pretty much meaning keeping directions simple, not being broad or too long. In the bad example of an assignment, there are some questions where it's like 2 questions in one, and that's kind of a bit of overload for one question. It might be too much for the students to comprehend. But yes, that is step 1. Any questions on step 1? You guys have any questions? No? Okay. Step number 2.
Okay, steps number 2. Steps number 2 is about writing each accomplishment in a single sentence. So if you read this, I guess this is pretty much explanatory. It just helps you a lot to think about what kind of objectives or things that you want your students to learn from. I think this is the most important part in this step, is to use verbs, action words in creating these sentences. So action words such as explain, apply, and also use fill in the blanks, define. Other words can also be conclude, construct, or change, combine, or choose. Action verbs like that. You can use those words to be able to create a better, effective objectives to better help your students know what you expect your students to learn from what you prepare for that lesson. And the last point is that make sure these sentences are precise and can be easily understood and don't make them complex.
Like something else to add on that, like the more understandable it is, not necessarily making it the questions themselves easier or the sentence easy, but if they're understandable, like if they're clear and direct, the greater the chances that the students will do the assignment. The next one, step 3, give the students a copy of the same sentences. I'll just go, first of all, was there any questions, section 2, on step 2? You guys have any questions? No? Okay, so step 3, got away. Give the students a copy of the same sentences. So I'll go through the bullets. Students can be in control when they know what objectives they are responsible for. So kind of going back on what Seth was saying with step 2 with the verbs, with the action words, those help students know like what they need to do. And when they know what to do, they pretty much take action and do the assignment. They know what they're responsible for. And second one, explain the concept of study guidelines. The sentences serve as a guide when the student studies for a unit. So, concept of a study guideline. So these sentences that you're making, when you're presenting an assignment to your class, you want to say like these sentences aren't so much like problems, but like they're a guideline to help the students understand the overall topic of like what the overall lesson is. Not individually, but it helps guide what the helps guide them to understand the objective. Does that make sense? Okay. So these sentences that you're making, they're study guidelines. So to help the students understand like kind of the big picture, to understand the objective or the outcome of the assignment. So, do you guys, section 3, do you guys have any questions about step 3? Good? Okay. And then we'll go to the last step.
Okay, our last step is post or send these sentences home with the students. So I'll just go through the bullets. It's write assignments for accomplishment based on objectives, not coverage. So I guess all these bullet points is just focusing more on while you're teaching or after or when you reach the closer. You just have to go back and to review again the objectives of what the students need to the requirements is right for the student, what the students need to know and to need to understand about the lesson. And if they don't understand it, then you can have time, take time to explain it to them again, and then explain to them the objectives and what you want them to accomplish. Take home part, I guess this also helps for students to be able to better effectively know what you want to teach them and to know what they want to learn with the help of their parents. So,
Can I see the word base?
Yeah. This going off of what Eseta said, which might have said earlier, but like yeah. So in the part where it says like closer send these sentences home, I guess that would be like a homework assignment. And so you don't want to give an assignment where it says like do chapter 24, read all of it, answer the questions at the end. Because then all the student knows is that they have to do chapter 24 and the parent can't really help them because what's chapter 24 about? If you give something more precise, more clear, it at least helps the parent help the student. I don't know if that makes sense. If it doesn't, please raise your hand. Okay, so that's all the steps. Is there any groups that want to recap of their step? Yes, no? Okay. Yeah, okay. So before, we'll skip this. Okay, so before we go into this example, now we're going to break you off into another groups. So you're going to be with other people from step 2, like so people from step 1, someone will have, you have people from step 2, 3, and 4, we'll count out like that. Some might have more people than other groups.
okay, I'm gonna count you off again, so you're gonna have different members in each group. So what you have, you need to discuss that and also do a good assignments. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shirley, 1 Marshall, 2 Mary, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So move again to each section. So use the notes that you take and then explain within your groups, and after that you will. Wait, 4? Is it 1, 3?
1 is
Wait. 3, 4.
Eseta.
That's next year. I'll sit on the Alright, so let's start number 2. Okay, so I'm just giving out an example of a good assignments. and in your groups, use your notes to discuss with each other what you learned. And then you're gonna have to choose a topic from up here and create your own group assignments.
Yeah. So we know we don't have like content or material for you to actually make an assignment. Just pretend like you have content about something about sports or something about nature, and then you take that topic and you make an assignment. Like you make sentences, you know, things that we discussed through the steps. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. We'll come around to each group if anyone needs help, but you guys can look at the example that Eseta has passed out, use that as a reference, and then use that to make your own assignment. And then at the end, if we have time, we'll pick on a group or two to share how they made their assignment. Okay? So work as a group.
Yeah, topics about breathing, mostly eaters.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
So, what are we looking
Yeah.
Guys,
we're supposed to make things.
So these are all considered steps. So you should actually discuss how to do so this one is just
Whoever has to do like diversity or culture.
it should be
How, way of living.
So do we just write examples of this?
Oh my gosh,
So like name all 8 planets.
Okay, hopefully that was enough to look at the example. So if you guys haven't picked a topic yet, please pick one now, because in a couple minutes we're going to pick on a group.
That I said that it would like identify their order.
What, if they really want the students to talk about the more? About Bible? Book of Mormon? Okay, so we can choose a chapter from the Book of Mormon and what do we want the student gauge? So what was the first one? Let's choose a chapter that everybody stays. Right. 1st Nephi 3. 30 by 11?
Like describe.
Alright, so I hope you guys get something down. We're just gonna randomly pick a group that
It's
can
okay
share
if you
with
don't have
us.
it completely done, like as long as you have the
Yeah.
idea. But
So we're just gonna choose Pilar's group to please share with us what they share, discuss in their group, what a key assignment should be.
Okay, we'll choose Masha.
Choose me? Oh. Okay, so our group chose the topic from there. Well, actually, Pila chose the topic of religion and about the Bible. And I guess we have to create an assignment, right, for the topic. It would be like.
So we just barely got to like the brainstorming steps, but so we're thinking we're going to teach 3rd Nephi 11, and so the first thing we need to do is determine what we want them to learn from 3rd Nephi 11, and so maybe we want them to know like what Jesus said about himself, and we want to know how the people reacted. So then after knowing what we want to do, we have to think about okay, what's a sentence to explain that? And what are the verbs that we want the students to be able to do? And then we'll like wrap those up and send them to the students.
Yeah, I think with like, what was the religion topic, maybe some verbs like, we're familiar with religion classes, they use a lot of like, how does this apply, compare with another scripture, things like that, so, good.
Reading comprehension.
Okay, so that's the end of our lesson today. Hopefully, the steps made sense, and if not, that's our fault for not following the steps. But use these steps to help make your assignments effective with your future teaching. And that's all we have for today.
Thank you.